One evening, as Omavie made her way back home, she encountered a dwarf standing by the roadside. He was a peculiar figure and had a beard that brushed against the ground. Once upon a time in the quiet village of Udu, there lived a young woman named Omavie. She was a beautiful woman, known for her radiant smile and graceful presence. Each day, she would walk to her shop at the market, where she sold fresh farm produce. And her journey always took her along the narrow paths that led through the heart of the village. Her life was simple, and like many women in her village, she dreamt of marriage, children, and a future filled with happiness. One evening, as Omavie made her way back home, she encountered a dwarf standing by the roadside. He was a peculiar figure and had a beard that brushed against the ground. His eyes gleamed with a mischievous light, and he carried a small wooden staff which he used to steady his steps. Omavie had never seen him before, and something about him made her uneasy. Without thinking, she laughed, mocking his small stature. "How do you even manage to walk with legs so short?" Omavie said, her voice laced with cruel amusement. "It must be a wonder you can move at all." The dwarf's smile faded, and a shadow passed over his face. He said nothing in response, merely looking at her with eyes that seemed to see straight into her soul. After a moment of silence, he turned and walked away, leaving Omavie with an odd, unsettled feeling. She shrugged it off and continued on her way, unaware that in that very moment, her life had taken a dark turn. The dwarf was no ordinary man. He was a powerful witch doctor, known to those who respected the old ways of Ikago. He had the power to call upon the spirits and manipulate the forces of nature. And now, insulted and angered by Omavie's thoughtless words, he placed a silent curse on her. He didn't need chants or ritual. His power flowed from his thoughts. The curse was simple. She would never have human children. Instead, she would lay eggs. Months passed, and Omavie forgot about the strange encounter. Life continued as usual. She soon met a handsome young man named Ogenekaro. He was a strong, kind-hearted farmer, respected by the villagers for his diligence and integrity. They fell in love quickly, and before long, they were married in a grand ceremony, attended by the entire village. It seemed as though Omavie's dreams were coming true. She had found love and a life partner with whom she would build a family. Not long after their wedding, Omavie became pregnant. The villagers were excited for the young couple, and as her belly grew, everyone eagerly awaited the birth of her first child. Omavie herself was filled with joy and anticipation. But something strange happened when her time came. One night, during a violent thunderstorm, Omavie went into labor. The midwives were summoned, and Ogenekaro waited anxiously outside the room, listening to the cries of his wife. Hours passed, but instead of hearing the wail of a new baby, there was only silence. The door opened, and one of the midwives stepped out. Her face pale and her hands trembling. "Ogenekaro," she whispered, barely unable to meet his eyes. "It is not a child. It's an egg." Ogenekaro's heart stopped. "What do you mean an egg?" he demanded. With shaky hands, the midwife showed him the object wrapped in a cloth. It was a large, smooth, and white egg, perfectly formed and beautiful. It was the size of a human baby, yet cold to touch. Ogenekaro was horrified. His mind reeled as he tried to make sense of what he was seeing. "Who does that? What kind of mystical event is this?" he asked, his voice raising in panic. Omavie, exhausted and confused, was unable to explain. Tears streamed down her face as she looked at the egg that had come out from her own body. The midwives fled the hospital ward, unwilling to be near such a strange and unnatural occurrence. The next day, the village erupted in gossip. News of the egg spread like wildfire, and soon everyone knew that Omavie had given birth to something that wasn't human. Days turned into weeks, and the egg never hatched. It sat in the corner of their home, a silent reminder of a curse that had been placed on Omavie, even without her knowledge. The villagers, once friendly and supportive, began to avoid her. They whispered behind her back, calling her cursed and unholy. Ogenekaro, though deeply confused and troubled, refused to abandon his wife, despite the growing fear and resentment in the village. The village chief, troubled by the strange event, sent for the chief priest, a man known for his deep connection to the gods. But when the chief priest heard about the egg, he refused to come. "My eyes cannot behold such an abomination," he said. "It is the anger of the gods, and I will not bring their wrath upon myself by going near it." Instead, the chief priest sent a grave warning to Ogenekaro. "Do not abandon your wife. If you try to run away, you will surely die." Fearful of the gods' wrath, Ogenekaro stayed with Omavie's side. Though his heart was filled with confusion and sorrow, life became unbearable for the couple. The villagers kept their distance, and people began to fear that Omavie's presence would bring calamity upon them all. The chief himself started to worry, convinced that the gods were displeased with the village. Then, after 1 year and 8 months, something remarkable happened. Omavie became pregnant again. This time, the village was filled with even greater anxiety. Whispers spread, and everyone wondered what would happen. Would it be another egg? Would the gods strike them all down? As the months passed, Omavie carried her second child with great anticipation. She prayed to the gods every night, begging for mercy, hoping against hope that this time she would give birth to a human child. But her prayers went unanswered. When her time came again, Omave felt the familiar pains of labor, and with great effort, she laid another egg. The village was thrown into chaos. The king could no longer bear it. He gathered his council and declared that the gods were angry, and that Omave and her family were the source of their wrath. He feared that if she stayed in the village, calamity would befall them all. "We cannot risk the anger of the gods," the king announced. "She must leave. I thereby banish Omave and her family from Udu. They must never return, for their presence is a curse upon us all." Ogenekaro, though heartbroken, knew there was no other choice. The village has turned against them, and they could no longer live among the people they once called family, friends, and neighbors. With heavy hearts, Omave and Ogenekaro left their home, carrying their 2 eggs with them. They wandered for days until they came upon a neighboring village where no one knew their story. They settled there and began anew, hiding their secrets and trying to forget their past. Life resumed its course, and for a while, they managed to live peacefully. But soon, the inevitable happened. Omave became pregnant for the 3rd time. And as before, she laid another egg. The people of the new village were shocked. Whispers and rumors spread like wildfire. How could a woman give birth to an egg instead of a child? Fearful and confused, the villagers sought the help of their own chief priest, who came to see the strange phenomenon with his own eyes. Upon entering their home, the priest made several incantations, his voice low and rhythmic. He stared at Omave and shook his head. "The walking tortoise is vexed with you," he solemnly said. "This curse is beyond my power. Only he who placed it can lift it. You must find him if you wish to be free." Desperate and with no other choice, Omave and Ogenekaro began their search for the dwarf man. For months, they traveled from village to village, asking anyone who would listen if they had seen or heard of a man known as the walking tortoise. Their efforts seemed futile, and hopes began to fade. Then one day, as Omave stood at a T-junction, weary from the journey, she saw a familiar figure walking towards her. It was him, the dwarf man. Her heart raced as she dropped to her knee. "Please, wise one," she cried, "forgive me. Forgive me for mocking you all those years ago." The dwarf man stopped and looked at her, his eyes clouded with age. He didn't remember her at first, but as she explained her predicament, a grin spread across his face. He laughed heartily. "Ah, this is the consequence of your arrogance," he said. "You mocked what you did not understand, and now you suffer for it." Omave wept bitterly. "I beg you, wise one, please help me. I have 3 eggs in my home, my children. The sight of them tortures me every day. I have been banished from my own village because of this. Please, help me." The dwarf man's eyes softened slightly. "Very well," he said after a long pause. "I will free you from the curse. Meet me here at midnight tonight. with your 3 eggs. Do not keep me waiting." Excited and hopeful, Omavie rushed home to share the news with Ogenekaro. Together, they prepared the eggs and waited for the appointed time. At exactly 11:45 p.m., they left their home and made their way to the junction, carrying the 3 eggs that had haunted them for years. The dwarf was already there waiting. Without uttering a single incantation, he placed his hand on Omavie's head, murmured a few words, and sprinkled some water on the eggs. "It is done," he said. "Simply go home and rest." Confused but hopeful, the couple returned home. The night passed in silence, and Omavie slept for the first time in years without the weight of dread on her chest. At dawn, Omavie woke up different, lighter, freer, but something was amiss. She felt an unusual presence in her house, one she hadn't sensed before. Slowly, she made her way to the room where the eggs were kept. Her breath caught in her throat as she saw what awaited her. There, lying on the floor, were 3 beautiful babies, human babies. Omavie screamed in joy and disbelief, waking Ogenekaro, who rushed to her side. Tears filled his eyes as he beheld the miracle before them. Their curse has been lifted. The news of the hatching spread quickly, and soon the entire village gathered outside their home, eager to see the children who had come from eggs. The chief priest, upon hearing the news, declared it a sign of the God's mercy. The couple was no longer cursed, but blessed, for their perseverance and humility had set them free. And so, Ogenekaro and Omavie, once outcasts and subject of scorn, became the talk of the land, not for the curse that has plagued them, but for the miracle that had restored their family. In time, they returned to their own village, where they were welcomed with open arms. The past was forgiven, and Omavie never again mocked what she did not understand. The story teaches that we should never mock or judge others based on appearances or misunderstandings, as we do not always know the full extent of their power or significance. It also shows how perseverance and seeking redemption can lead to transformation and blessing, even in the darkest of situations.